have come to the conclusion that we all ought to be a little more like hobbits. Actually, probably not a little. We ought to be a lot more like hobbits.
Chesterton said that there is nothing more extraordinary in this world than an ordinary man, his ordinary wife, and their ordinary children. It turns out that being ordinary is a full-time job. It turns out that when you're ordinary, you have fewer things that you're concerned with, and so the things that you are concerned with, you're going to be more concerned with and more invested in. There's going to be more of your heart and soul in them. You could get the sense that they are both tradesmen and craftsmen at the same time with regards to the same things. A tradesman in the sense that they are doing things to serve others, to serve the common good. And a craftsman in the sense that, like, hold on a second, this is an art form.
And they're doing it with pride, and they're doing it with care. The hobbit approaches his farm the way that dwarves approach their jewelry.
What are we drinking tonight, Ethan?
This is tea, though it is not only tea, because I put gin in there as well. Peach and Tension Tamer tea from Celestial. Very, very good. Helps one relax. And if you put their Tension Tamer and Sleepy Time together, like if you brew that together in a pot, it'll knock you out. Like you just go straight down, and you probably won't get up for a while.
Okay.
So I don't recommend that if you have to get up early.
No, fair enough.
But for those who have trouble sleeping, it is quite good. And I have added, as is proper, I always put some honey in my tea. And I have added gin. Mostly because I thought this morning I might be coming down with something in my throat. And gin and honey and tea are the best things for that.
I should try that combo. I would just have to acquire gin. Now, granted, I plan on acquiring gin when I next visit you. But I may have to acquire a cheaper gin for that, because that is fine stuff, what I'll be purchasing from the good state of Missouri.
That's the stuff you drink straight.
Yes. Unadulterated.
And I'm perfectly happy to... It's Pinckney Ben cask finish gin, by the way. I'm perfectly happy to freely advertise that stuff. It is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It has my full endorsement.
They're not paying us. We wish they were, but they're not paying us.
I would love for them to, but alas and alack, they are not.
One day, perhaps. On my side, I am smoking Heaven Hill. Not smoking, goodness sakes. I will be smoking eventually on this podcast. That'll be a story for another time. But I am drinking Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond, which apparently was once the #1 selling bourbon in the state of Kentucky.
Ooh.
This was a gift from a friend of mine. It is at least 7 years old, they say on the bottle. And Bottled and Bond is a particular classification of bourbon, and it can be applied to things outside of bourbon, but has to be 100 proof, has to be done in like a specific type of warehouse or something under government supervision, or a federally bonded warehouse.
Under federal supervision.
Yes. It has to be, the distilling has to be done in one distilling season, so like January to June or July to December, and there can't be any additives besides water in it to cut it down. So Bottled and Bond exists as a classification to ensure the purity of the bourbon, and it's from a law that was enacted in 1897.
Okay, so that's a pre-prohibition law, because I like how the federal government went from saying, no, you can't have this at all, to we are going to make sure that you produce the absolute best and purest possible.
Yep. Well, because people were adding different things to it to cut it down or whatever else.
Yeah, so I can see why that would be, why the federal government would want to get involved, because that's a huge business.
Yep.
And that's like, no, we got to step in and make sure you're doing this honestly.
Far from the first time that's happened in American history. I mean, if you go way back to colonial days, like bread was a commodity. Bread was something that was, regulated. Like, you couldn't be screwing around with how you were making the bread.
You couldn't be putting wood chips in your bread to make it bigger or whatever.
No, you can't be doing that.
Whatever, sawdust or whatever. What is it? People were putting sawdust in bread to...
Might have been, yeah.
Save on flour.
Yeah, or in poor
something.
times, they would try and get away with other things like, potatoes and other stuff. Which, if you got nothing else, like, that's fine, but...
Yeah.
Well, the salt pork used to be that way as well. So you couldn't just take a bunch of heads and stuff that in your salt pork barrel and try and sell it. Like, there had to be a certain variety of cuts of pork that made their way into the barrel.
These cuts of the pig, and
So, yeah. So,
now I want bacon.
Can't argue with that. And nor can you argue with this bourbon. It is very good. Those of you that listen to this channel know that I do not have a sophisticated palate, and I did not develop one over the last couple of weeks between the last episode and this one when you're watching it. But it is very good. That is all I have to say.
That's the most we're probably ever going to say about a bourbon is, yeah, it's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a little bit of this sweet floral stuff I associate with like a Four Roses small batch, but not entirely that. Not entirely that. And that's high praise. I'd have to try regular Four Roses again. I feel like I might be disappointed in that now, even though I have no right to be disappointed in it. But that's what I'm having. And beyond what we're having more poetry this evening. Just kidding. We haven't returned to that yet. Eventually we will. Eventually we will get back on the poetry train. But
and maybe eventually we will have a system of, we have our conversation and then we have poetry that goes along with it. That would be a nice thing.
Yeah, might be a fair idea. But you wanted to talk about hobbits this evening. We wanted to return to Lord of the Rings. We wanted to return to the Shire.
I did. So for Lent, my household has dramatically reduced screen time. Primarily me and my wife, because there are times when you just need to put children in front of the television and say, okay, watch this. I gotta go do stuff. But that means that I now have to find other ways to amuse myself. So I just decided that I was going to start reading the Lord of the Rings. And as much as it pains me to say, this is my first actual reading of the Lord of the Rings. The last time I experienced the books was when I was about 12 or 13 and my mother read them to me.
Yeah, you've read the movies, you've played some video games with them, you know your stuff, but I'm the certified nerd on the channel, so. And
I'm your best friend, so yes, there's that too.
Yeah.
So, I have the knowledge that I have picked up outside of reading of things, and just the things that I've picked up through.
Mm-hmm. Plenty that I've said has rubbed off on you.
Yes. Well, and through just reading Tolkien's poems outside of the regular work, listening to music that has been based on those poems. But this time I'm actually reading The Fellowship of the Ring. And the prologue, as everyone ought to know at this point, is concerning hobbits. Or concerning hobbits is the first part of the prologue. But the entire prologue is about hobbits. And as I was reading this, I sort of got to thinking, I've held this belief for a long time now, but after reading the prologue and the first chapter of The Fellowship of the Ring, I have come to the conclusion that we all ought to be a little more like hobbits. Actually, probably not a little. We ought to be a lot more like hobbits. Because the hobbits have a great many virtues that I think far too many people these days lack. And, well, primarily it's the virtues of simple folk. Ordinariness. If the hobbits are meant to be paragons of anything, it is paragons of being ordinary. It's one of the first lines said about them is, they love peace and quiet and good-tilled earth. They love to sit on the front porch and smoke a pipe. They love their food. They love their drink. They just love all the things that make life living for them. They don't really have worries. They don't really have too many fears. And they don't concern themselves with things outside of the Shire, or at least not anything past Breeland. And I don't know, there were just a lot of things that stood out to me going, you know what? Most people could use a little more of that. Not to say that they're utopian, by any means, or that, if we all just lived like hobbits, the entire world would be fixed, because LOTR knows that the hobbits have their own problems, and, well, we should never be relying on a utopian vision to try to solve our problems anyway.
True. And eventually in this podcast, we'll get to, why some of those qualities aren't necessarily virtuous or aren't necessarily virtuous all the time. But no, there is something to imitate there.
And I think most people, most people who are even mildly familiar with The Lord of the Rings are drawn, they're attracted at least in some way to Hobbit life. And I think it might be something other than the 6 meals a day. But then again, I think there are a great many people who vastly misinterpret Hobbit-Living, where they think that just means that you're constantly just eating and drinking all the time.
Yeah, it's not exactly that simple.
No, and the prologue of The Fellowship of the Ring illustrates as much. So if you have anything to add, go ahead, because this isn't meant to be a video essay of mine.
No. But, I would echo what you said. There's ways to interpret that well, right? That virtue of ordinariness, and there's ways to question that. I think if somebody was to question that, they might be like, well, what counts as ordinary? Well, ordinary is boring. Ordinary is just staying in the same place and doing the same stuff and not really having much of an adventure in your life, which we've talked about before in this podcast, like the adventure of life. That's very important. It doesn't seem like you're really focused on going out and accomplishing all of the great things in the world. It doesn't seem that you're concerned much about the outside world, and so there are things that you should be aware of that you aren't aware of. And so, wait, is ordinariness really a virtue? And some of that can be called into question, I think, but the larger point of ordinariness being a virtue holds up very well under scrutiny, I believe. Chesterton said that there is nothing more extraordinary in this world than an ordinary man, his ordinary wife, and their ordinary children. And we've said that before in this podcast, and I'm not done bringing up that line. Because
it deserves
so
to
much
be
of what
said.
we talk about and what we choose to talk about in this podcast and what we believe can be boiled into that statement.
Yes.
It turns out that being ordinary is a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that when you're ordinary, you have fewer things that you're concerned with, and so the things that you are concerned with, you're going to be more concerned with and more invested in. There's going to be more of your heart and soul in them.
Mm-hmm.
And first and foremost, that should be yourself, right? I want to be the best version of myself. I want to work on myself throughout the day. Well, it's hard to do that if I'm trying to do 1,000 different things. If I'm worried about these 5 podcasts and, what my crypto and investments are doing and how these sport teams are doing and, what's in the news here and what's in the news there, this TV show, all these different clubs that I'm a part of, or all these Discord servers I'm a part of, and just eventually, your attention can only be split across so many things, and you still retain any sense of wait, how am I doing? This is why we have trouble sitting in silence these days. Not just these days. Other people have had that problem in the past too, but just we don't really know how to work on ourselves. Mm-hmm. Well, you would know how to work on yourself if you got out of your own way and spent the time. And ordinary living gives you that space, right? And it's not just about you, it's about your family. It's about your friends. It's about the people that are right around you that are actually within your sphere of influence. So I can choose to have a deeper friendship with somebody. And I can choose to make this part of my town a better place. Because I have time to care about it. Not even about whether I choose to care about it or not. I have the time to care about it because I've made the time. This part of my town, my church, my extended family, right? Whatever the case is. And also, in one of the last episodes, I forget which one, I talked about the romanticism of the ordinary. When you're simple and you have fewer things to do, you're going to find all those ordinary things that you do more interesting. You're going to find that they have a greater value to you than you did before. Again, you're going to be caring about them more, as we've said. So it just naturally flows from that. I think, even in today's crazy world, just one example of this, just one, is how a dad really cares about his lawn. He's got his work, he's got his job, he's got his hobbies, he's got his family to take care of, and all his different things. But, one thing that he can return to is, I got my lawn, and I got to mow it, and I want it to look good. I'm going to care about making my lawn look good. Whether I'm doing the same pattern of rows up and down, or I'm changing it up this week, I'm going the other way. Maybe I'm doing that weird thing where I just go in a circle all the way around and I spiral inward or something. Like, yeah, that works too. Like, whatever I've done, I want it to look good, and I want to sit back at the end and take pride in what I've done. Like, that looks great. That is a hallmark of ordinary living. Or at least of some amount of ordinary living that you're doing. Right? Where you can look at something simple and mundane, like your lawn, and take pride in the fact that you did a good job. And not, this is what the hobbits do. The hobbits care about the orderliness of their work. What was that line that they love? They love peace and quiet and a good tilled earth. Yeah, they'd like to garden. They'd like to farm. They'd like it to look good. That's the sense I would get out of hobbits. They would not be so pleased about a carefree field that's a mess. But no, they're going to care about how it looks, and they're going to care about what they produce.
Well, I think they would like a field of wildflowers if it's in its proper place.
Yes, agreed.
If it's out past the hilltop outside of town, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still going to make sure that all my cabbages are in nice little rows. I'm going to make sure that everything I have is mostly orderly, although we know that hobbit houses can often get very cluttered. Because every time you go to a birthday party, you receive a gift. So, what is the word that they use for those little things?
Things that they don't have any use for but are unwilling to give away, they're called mathams.
Mathams, yes. The things that have no use, but we don't want to get rid of. Everybody has mathams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we ought to actually call them that. I have a feeling that's a word that Tolkien just made up, unless it's just some British term.
It works. It's a good term.
The way it's emphasized in a book that's intended for a British audience, I feel like it's a made-up word. But it works. Yeah. Everybody's got mathams. Everybody's got a junk drawer. A matham is I don't want to throw that away, I might need it. It's that one very specific piece of wood, because at some point, I'm going to need that very specific piece of wood that will just absolutely save the day.
So in other words, you're sane. Even if somebody doesn't think you're sane when looking at, why would you keep that piece of wood?
And I know exactly where it is, and I will know exactly where it is in 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But no, to your point about the field of wildflowers and the being in its right place and the cabbages being in its right place, yeah, they have a proper understanding of order. Which you get when you are a simple liver, and that's all you really have to care about.
Yes.
And what's funny is that is... I'll stop talking in a little bit.
Yeah.
It's funny that they are the opposite of Sauron in that sense, because Sauron's primary vice is order. That's the way that he falls initially. This is deeper lore for people. Is basically he cared too much about order.
There's a disordered desire for order.
Yeah, and so the hobbits have a more ordered desire for order, I would say.
Yeah. Which is why... Well, that's why Sauron wants to enslave everyone. And he wants to bend the entirety of Middle-earth to his will.
Mm-hmm.
So he can make it look the way he thinks it ought to look.
Whereas the hobbits, by and large, each family governs their own affairs, and they care more about making the soil and the cabbages bend to their will. Mm-hmm. And maybe leaving it at that.
Even then, they understand that soil and cabbages don't really listen when you tell them to do. Like, there's only so much control you can have over the soil and cabbage. But, yes, the way that they approach their work, how they... And it is work to survive. Hobbits don't grow up and then go, well, I guess I gotta go get a job now. No, this is what you do and this is who you are. I'm the shoemaker. Well, they don't have shoemakers. They don't wear shoes.
Yeah, Tolkien says that is the one craft that they don't really know that well.
Shoemaking, because they don't need shoes. But I'm the tailor. I'm the watchmaker. I'm this, or I'm that. I'm the carpenter. I'm the farmer. They don't have indoor plumbing, I don't think, so we don't have to worry about plumbers.
Fair.
Or we together are the builders. It's not so much a, well, I got to have this because I got to have a job. It's, I don't know, it's a different view of I got to have the job to survive. It's not a, I got to have a job so I can make money so I can survive. It's, I have to do this work so that we can all survive. That if I don't pull my weight, I'm pulling everyone else down with me. Which I think is something that modern American society doesn't fully understand. Because the way that we look at jobs is, well, you got to go to school. You know, stay in school, you got to get a job so you can support yourself. Well, why not have a job? Why not work like a hobbit? Why not have work or have a view of work where the work that is valued the most is what actually holds the world up? The jobs without which there would be no civilization. And the people who either chose those professions, they're in those professions either because they brought up in those professions, or they chose them because they wanted to do something that was necessary.
There's something about it that is directed towards not just yourself, right? It goes
It's
beyond
directed
yourself.
towards, yes, it's work that is directed toward the common good rather than the individual good. Because today we have a society that's a commonality of individuals.
Yeah, and
Almost
it's not
everything is
dictated
directed
by-
toward the individual.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing that encourages, these days societally, that encourages the common good. Participation in greater society as a whole in the common good.
Yeah, we all have too many choices.
Yeah.
Too many for our own good, one could argue. I mean, there's a ton of freedom that comes with that, but there's also that one line from that one priest, you know, since discerning became fashionable, nobody's made a decision. Which applies to more things than just, marriage or the
Yes.
priesthood or the religious life, right? I mean, what's my job going to be? I have no idea. You know, I don't know what I care about. Which, funny enough, was my attitude in college. Like, if you had asked me what I want to be when I grow up, I would have said, yeah, I don't know. I still don't have that answer.
I had an answer. I didn't really know. My answer was just what everybody assumed my answer was going to be. So that's just what I told everyone. And then I tried it and realized that that was certainly not for me.
Yeah, it's a bit more mysterious.
That's why it dawned on me, well, hey, I am the most at peace when I'm writing. So why don't I try to make a go of that? And I haven't yet, but that won't stop me from trying.
There you go, then. There you go.
But I think it's doing the work that gives you peace and finding peace and satisfaction within your work. It's like, even in my job, when I have to, I take these numbers out of a spreadsheet, I take these document listing numbers out of a spreadsheet, and then I work them one by one. Well, when I get them, they're colored purple. Then when I work them, I change them to green. So at the end of the day, I can sit back and I can look at all of the ones that I've done that day. And I can have the satisfaction of typing that number into my timesheet. Or into my production sheet.
Which, funny enough, I mean, there's a certain craftsmanship to that type of work that you're doing yourself. Even for something as mundane as that. And that's about as mundane as it gets. Right?
Yeah.
The Hobbits have that. You could get the sense that they are both tradesmen and craftsmen at the same time with regards to the same things. A tradesman in the sense that they are doing things to serve others, to serve the common good. And a craftsman in the sense that, like, hold on a second. This is an art form.
And they're doing it with pride, and they're doing it with care. The Hobbit approaches his farm the way that dwarves approach their jewelry, or their weapons. Or maybe even the way that the elves approach their weapons. The farmers of the Shire are as high in skill as the smiths of Eregion. Now, who's more flashy and who gets more attention? It's the smiths of Eregion. Now, whose work is more constant? It's the farmers of the Shire. And I think the constancy of the farm, I think, is it gives it this ancient feel. The Shire is a place you walk into and it's like time hasn't passed in 1,000 years. This place has always looked this way, and it always will look this way. Because this is their way of life, and they don't like change. And maybe not even so much that they don't like it, it's that they just don't have a need for it, because the hobbits are not above doing what they need to. If they don't really need it, for either their survival or their way of life, then they don't have it. That's where they strongly illustrate the principle of subsidiarity that we've talked about. Like, it's all as it needs to be, and as close to your actual home as possible. The families deal with their own affairs. They have virtually no government to speak of beyond the mayor of Mickeldelving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have the government they need, and it's the mayor, the Thane, so the War Master.
The old Took.
Yeah. The post office, the sheriffs. Yes, you got to have sheriffs, and some bounders to, keep the outside folk at bay. Mm-hmm. Either out or just, within the rules.
Or just, hey, move along, nothing to see here.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of people. And that's the minimum that you need. You need people to enforce law and order when they need to, and you need somebody to settle disputes. Yeah, now, the professed purpose of the Thane of the Shire is the War Master.
Mm-hmm.
The hobbits don't fight. They don't really go to war. The last time they went to war was when the game of golf was invented.
True.
It's the last time a hobbit went to war.
Mm-hmm.
Or the last battle, that was the battle that was fought within the bounds of the Shire.
Yep. Old Bull Roarer Took.
Bull Roarer Took.
Led them into battle and knocked the goblin's head clean off with his club, and it went down a rabbit hole.
And thus the battle was won, and the game of golf invented at the same time.
By the way, just to quickly return to an earlier point, neither of us are libertarians. There's plenty of problems with that. And yet, the best government is the one you need that works for you. The best way to do things is in the lowest level possible.
Yeah.
So, subsidiarity, in a word. The hobbits do that well.
And it isn't so much a small government, it's a simple government.
Hmm.
It isn't its size, it's its simplicity that matters more.
That's a good point. That's a good point for people.
Because I want the government to do virtually nothing. Well, then what's the point? And by the way, do you like roads?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like law and order? Do you like no invasions? Well, somebody has to collect taxes for that.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you need to obey the laws.
Yeah, it turns out that...
Why shouldn't you be allowed to just cross the street wherever? Why do you have to keep to the crosswalk? Well, because the guy that is keeping the enemies at bay told you to. So he's doing that. His job is hard enough without you deciding to throw yourself in the middle of traffic and crossing the street 10 feet from a crosswalk because you couldn't be bothered to wait. I know, that's a pet peeve of mine. I think that we need to have policemen on foot again with whistles that write people tickets for jaywalking and littering, and I think that would solve 90% of our problems because it would cut them out at the root.
I could get behind that. If that was what your police officers were allowed to be concerned with, what they had the time to be concerned with, just imagine how much better your town would be. That's the crap we're dealing with. Not the current crap we're dealing with.
When your police department's biggest issue is we had 5 more jaywalkers today than we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
What is this, National Jaywalking Week? When that's your biggest issue, I think all is well with the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't get the sense that the hobbits are...
and when people aren't constantly talking back to the officer. But, yeah, you don't get the sense... Go ahead.
That hobbits are thieves and drug addicts and murderers and all that fashion of people. I think there's
the occasional brawl.
Probably the occasional brawl, and, Bilbo actually had money, so yes, let's try and sneak into his house or sneak off into the cellar and dig a hole in the wall and try and find the gold that
What sneak? They just walked through the front door and started taking things.
Well, there were still gifts to give out, so it was...
There were still gifts to give out, but there were fist fights breaking out over people taking other people's gifts, and Oh,
That
it
might
was
have happened,
nasty. That was not at all a flattering. That was not the Hobbit's finest hour.
No, it was not.
That's
But it
not
took
flattering at all.
it took being in a rich house for them to get to that point. Like, I mean, by and large,
not
they're
just-
not doing.
Not just a rich house. I made this point with you last night when we were planning.
Mm-hmm.
The house of not only the richest hobbit in the Shire, but probably the richest individual among the free peoples of Middle-earth.
One of them, yeah.
Beyond the kings of men. And of elves and dwarfs.
Yep.
Bilbo certainly has nowhere close to the amount of wealth that sits underneath the Lonely Mountain. I'd say as a people, the dwarves are probably the most monetarily wealthy.
That has to be, yeah.
Almost certainly. But their wealth is sort of collective. I don't know. I don't typically think of one dwarf other than maybe the king. So Dane Ironfoot being particularly wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
It's-
Bilbo as an individual is certainly the wealthiest in that corner of Middle-earth. On that side of the Misty Mountains.
That's very believable, yeah. So again, that mithril shirt is worth more than the Shire and its contents.
So, but that's what it takes to bring out the worst in the hobbits, as far as greed is concerned. Because they're like, this is Bilbo, whose name is legend and is synonymous with the word eccentric.
Yeah.
Like, he's got stuff from all over.
But yeah, to return to our point, yeah, the hobbits do not need much policing.
No. And
They are-
usually, I mean, Frodo and Merry can handle it themselves.
There. They prove quite capable. What else could we say about the hobbits?
They are very good at leisure and rest. And that is to be taken as a compliment, because it's meant as one.
Yeah, so for those of our listeners that haven't paid attention or have paid attention and disagreed with previous episodes, why is love of beer and pipeweed and good company good leisure?
Well, I would direct you back to our episode that we did about leisure near the beginning of this podcast. But leisure is a necessary thing for society, because if you don't know how to rest, then you won't really be able to approach your work correctly. Like, if you're constantly working and working and working and working and working and you never rest, you'll die before you grow old. And you'll probably die before your heart stops beating. So that's the short of it. But also, every day is to be taken as itself, as its own. There's the beginning of the day, when we rise and we start anew, and we go about our work, and then we come home, when our work is done. And maybe we sit back and we look upon the work that we have done, or we sit back and just relax and be. So the leisurely are the well-rested.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things I think that Ben Franklin was talking about when he said that early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
He was right.
It's the health and the wisdom that are the most important of those three. So I cannot guarantee that it'll make you wealthy, but it will make you healthier, and it will make you wiser. If you know how to rest properly.
Yeah, well said.
And-
I don't necessarily have much to add to that, but
Good drink and good pipeweed are just pleasant things. And we should enjoy pleasant things. Why? Because they are pleasant and good. And in their proper place, they are even more pleasant and good. I don't really need to go any farther than that. That should be sufficient for most people. The words of Aquinas apply to more things than just belief in God. For those with faith, for those who have faith, no proof is necessary, but for those who do not have faith, no proof is sufficient. So if you just think that leisure is pointless to begin with, I can't help you. You and I are thinking about it in completely different ways. But if you like a cigar, if you like a good bowl of pipe tobacco, you like a good beer, a good glass of wine, a good cup of whiskey, you and I can have a conversation.
exactly.
And then everything that I just said rings true. It's one of those things you are very obviously on one side or the other.
Yeah, and they're not appreciating them for their... Well, they're appreciating them because they're good things, like you said. They're also happy to share them with others. So, like, a virtue I would point out with them is hospitality.
And generosity.
Yeah, and Tolkien talks about that. I mean, the way that a birthday party functions within Hobbit society is that for your birthday, you don't get gifts. For your birthday, you give gifts to other people.
Yeah, the gift that you get is people coming to celebrate you. That should be enough.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you just give people gifts. And even if that turns into different mathams being passed around, which it does in Hobbit culture.
I imagine there's a lot of re-gifting that happens.
Yes. Tolkien explicitly says so. Even so, yeah, there's a certain joy of life that is represented in that, right? Just like it is in any good hospitality. Like, I have good things. Come in, share them. Let us share them. Let us have this together. It's boring alone. It's good. Why would I not share that with you?
And the...
So they love that. They love parties. They love all that stuff.
I think the giving of gifts on one's birthday, I think it even goes beyond that. I've now thought about it just a little bit. If people are coming to celebrate your birthday, there is something to be said for your friends or your family conspiring together and gathering and showering you with gifts and praise and laud and acclamation, and for he's a jolly good fellow. But we've kind of gotten to the point where we just expect that. And those who are coming to celebrate your birthday are already doing you a service. They are already doing you honor by coming and celebrating your birthday with you. They are coming to a time and a place where you are the center of attention. And for you to then expect them to give you something on top of that, this isn't to say that receiving gifts on your birthday is bad, but it's... You ought to question your motivations. I think that's a serious conversation you ought to have with your conscience. If your birthday is ruined because the presents you got weren't good enough.
Yeah.
And not only does that make you a spoiled brat, that is also a horrible insult to everybody who has already come to celebrate you. And so the Hobbit birthday, where I don't receive gifts, I give little mathams to everybody that has come to my birthday. It's a show of my appreciation for them. You have come to celebrate me. Now let me show you how much I appreciate that. Which, given that they're mathams, usually is whatever you can afford. But if it's the 111st birthday of Bilbo Baggins, they aren't just mathams.
Oh no.
It's the finest things from every corner of Middle-earth that is not touched by the darkness. Toys of dwarf make. And, Tolkien wrote that so beautifully. The way that the little Hobbit children reacted to the dwarven toys. And it hurts to read a little bit, because there is a light to being a Hobbit child. We have taken wonder away from our children. Like all of the old toys that children used to have, little tin soldiers and little wooden dolls. We may have them to an extent a little bit, but so many children don't have wonder. Not the way that the Hobbit children do. The Toymaker is... the classic Toymaker is all but gone. He is no longer a mystical figure.
Yeah, I think no one listening will even know what a Toymaker is. Or have ever encountered one. I mean, they'll be able to figure out what it is. It's in the name. But, yeah, it's Amazon. It's Target. It's Toys R Us. It's whatever.
Yeah. But the man who would sit and sweat for hours on a drafting table and with a hammer and saw and plane to come up with something new, or to craft something wonderful to give to children, or even just those who would sit at a lathe and churn out spinning tops. The spinning tops are wonderful, and it doesn't take much really to entertain a child. I don't know, that's most of this is probably a conversation for a later time, but I felt it bore mentioning here.
Well, it does, and it's
the wonder of the Hobbit children at the toys of dwarven make.
I mean, ultimately, it ties back to what we started this with, like the love of the simple, the art of the simple living, right? When you live simply, you still have space to have wonder in all these things. Like that line you said, spinning tops are wonderful. So much is epitomized by that one line, by saying that something like a spinning top is wonderful. Like, wait, hold on a second. I can think of so many things more interesting than a spinning top. Yet there is a beauty to the simplicity of a spinning top. There really is. And all of us humans, even with all of the stuff in our life, we haven't forgotten. We haven't forgotten that fact. We haven't forgotten that instinct. Why? Why do I know this? Because fidget spinners were a thing. It's kind of the same thing. Oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to spin it. And I'm going to be entertained by that for hours. Right?
As ridiculous as people thought that those were, it's the same concept.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was something real. It was something in your hand. Now, the advantage to the spinning top is that was one of those things kind of like marbles where you would pit them against each other and then the winner gets both of the tops. I think that was how marbles were thought of back in the day.
Maybe, yeah.
That's a sad thing. Well, boys don't carry marbles in their pockets anymore.
That'd be cool. They do now. It's called Pokemon. And Pokemon are fine. But this is Pokemon cards. Well, now it's not Pokemon, it's Pokemon Go.
Yeah. It's not even that anymore. I don't know what they have now. Pokemon Go is sort of phased out.
No.
At least it's not as big as it had been.
Like, Pokemon cards would be cool. For that reason, though. Like, yeah, I'll go around and I'll show you my deck, and you'll show me my deck, and maybe we'll do a trade and stuff like that. Yeah, that's beautiful, actually.
Yeah, there's a beauty, just a treat. Even, like, baseball cards. They still sell baseball cards. Kids still collect baseball cards. It's a beauty to that.
Yeah.
And football and hockey and basketball and every sport you can imagine.
Yeah. No, exactly.
But if we were to return to the nobility of the hobbits, since we got just a little bit sidetracked, the wonder of hobbit children that the toys of Dwarven make. This can be both a virtue and a vice to the hobbits, but their caution towards adventuring. I say caution, it's more like outright disdain.
Yes, this is a point worth examining. They're very unfond of adventurers.
Yes. And I don't think it's because, well, this general demeanor towards adventuring is very much a product of all of their other goods. They're working the land, their love of their traditions, their love of their way of life, their simplicity. Adventuring sort of mucks that up. Now, I don't think anybody in the Shire has an outright disdain for Bilbo Baggins.
No,
except maybe his cousin.
The Sackville Bagginses.
The Sackville Bagginses.
But yes, I should reword it. They don't have a disdain for adventurers, necessarily, but adventuring.
Yeah, that is all illustrated in how Bilbo first reacts when Gandalf proposes an adventure to him in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
They make you late for dinner.
Nasty, uncomfortable business.
Nasty, uncomfortable business adventuring makes you late for dinner. Yeah, it does. It does make you late for dinner. I had a little adventure at work today that made me late for Mass.
Things happen.
And that was irritating. And unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something to be said for not constantly wanting to go out and experience and do things and being content with where you are and what you have. Now, most of the people of the Shire are not fond of the brandy bucks.
They are eccentric creatures to one extent or another.
They're a queer folk, to use that word in the classical sense, in the proper, correct sense, the way that Tolkien used it. Because the brandy bucks like to get into a wee bit of trouble now and then. And the Tooks are like that as well, a little bit. But being that they are one of the ruling families of the Shire for so long, they can get away with it.
They can do plenty.
Given that they've had the thainship of the Shire for so long, they can get away with it. And Frodo is part Took and part Brandybuck. So he is probably, by nature, the most improper hobbit in all of Hobbiton.
Might be.
And he becomes the master of Bag End. And in fact, that was one of the complaints of the Sackville Bagginses, where he's not even a full Baggins, he's half Brandybuck. Or he's more than half Brandybuck. But
too bad for them.
Yes, too bad for them. Because you can obviously go too far with it. You can be like the Sackville Bagginses, whose only aim in life is just to sit and be sour about everything. You can go too far in both directions. The Brandy Bucks as a whole, I think, earned their reputation. The Brandy Bucks in general need to sit down and be calm. Calm down a little bit.
Just a bit.
But I think, as loath as most of the hobbits would be to admit this, the Brandy Bucks and the Tooks, and now the Bagginses, have their place. And they are helping to maintain the order of the Shire. Being that their place is as the eccentric ones, as the weird ones, as the adventurers. Like, you have to have somebody that does that sort of thing. Because if your community had people that never left and came back, then you would be completely cut off from the outside world. And that is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Hobbiton's only connection with anything past Bree is Bilbo Baggins. Now, they shouldn't turn their noses up at it and sneer at it. They do the right thing in allowing their children to go and listen to old Bilbo tell stories again. But I think some of the grown, sensible hobbits would do well to come and ask Bilbo for a story, or ask the dwarves how are things under the mountain.
No, they would. They would. And I'll come eventually, because I know where we're going in this conversation. We outline these things after all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a particular flaw of the hobbits that I'll save for later, but I think that middle ground, right, where, okay, we want to have the simple living, we want to keep doing things the way we're doing, but obviously some adventuring is still good, right? I think some of it is represented by the original Edge of Night that we read in a previous poetry episode. Mm-hmm. You know, where Bilbo's talking about all of the different adventures we can go on. There's a new road over there. There's a secret gate over there. There's the romanticism of the ordinary. There's the, let's go check that out. That's really cool. While still knowing that at the end of it, yeah, we're going to come back home. We're going to go to bed. And this is all still part of life. This is all still part of life. Like, not everything has to be the mundane and the ordinary, although that's the foundation, right? Like, we can go have some fun. We can go look to our borders. We can, go see the things that there are to see for the same reason that we can smoke pipeweed. They're both good. They're both to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, the proportion of those who go out and adventure to those who stay home should lean in the direction of those who stay home.
Generally less, yes, because like we said, that's the foundation.
Yeah. Because again, Bilbo is a bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have children to take care of, except for when he took Frodo in. And there's nothing that indicates that... Actually, it's probably reasonable to figure, because I don't remember if it's explicitly mentioned, Bilbo probably didn't do much adventuring or much traveling while he was trying to raise Frodo. Or if he did, he probably brought Frodo with him.
Might have, yeah. I wonder what he did. Oh, what
was it like being raised by Bilbo Baggins? I don't know. That would be interesting.
That would be. But yeah, I mean, it's in all of this that we're talking about with, being a homebody and having some adventurous stuff, but like being the homebody and staying where you're rooted, doing those foundational, mundane, ordinary, and yet extraordinary things of life, having that as your foundation. In a sense, it's all about preserving culture, right? What makes you, you? What makes your group, your group? What makes your society, your society? Like, is this not a good thing that we ought to preserve? And some might say, well, yes, there's an organic element to tradition, to culture, and it does have to grow and develop, and so if you don't, you're stifling it. Yes, 100%. It does have to do that, and it will die if it doesn't. Just like any plant would die if it was stunted and stagnated. And
plants also die if they're overwatered.
Yes, this is true. And so you do need the preservation, And the plant is going to vary in terms of how it grows. It's only going to ever be in one spot. It's going to be putting down roots, and those roots better matter. So, unless the plant you're talking about is an ant, This matters. And the Ents handle that in their own fashion.
Well, that sort of brings us to how I think we can best describe the hobbits, or the chief virtue of the hobbits is rootedness. Is they are very rooted to what they do and where they are and who they are.
Yeah, there's a loyalty to who you are and to the best version of yourself and what that means. Like what your role is in this world. As dictated by your skills, but also dictated by what society needs of you, right? It can't all be about you. So, there's things to think about with that. There's things to ponder with that. But, as we've said to some extent already, yes, hobbits have virtues, but they're clearly not entirely virtuous. They're not something to be... They're something to kind of aspire towards, in a way, but they're not somebody to imitate full stop. Which is another way of saying they are good, but they are not utopian. And Tolkien would not have written them as a utopia. So
he outright in one of his letters said the hobbits are not meant to be utopian.
Which is good.
The same man who said, I am a hobbit in all but size.
Which means he was a humble man, and a good one.
Which basically means he's saying, yeah, hobbit ways are great and everything, and my ways are great and everything, but don't be like me.
No, I still have my problems. Let's not do that. And so, yeah, if we're going to level this out, what are some of their vices?
The biggest one, which is one that is born, this isn't really as much of a vice as just a problem that arises from the same source as their rootedness, is that they don't really have vigilance or readiness for conflict of any kind, because they haven't needed to fight for the longest time. They have the Dunedain patrolling their borders, and they take care of basically every major threat, and there aren't really that many internal threats among the hobbits. They don't fight among each other. They're not so... they can become angry, but they're not so violent-tempered that it becomes a big issue. Like, Hobbiton and Mickle Delving are not going to go to war
Oh, no.
with one another. Which, it's not that they're cowards or that they are pacifists, it's just that they just never needed to fight. So this one isn't really their fault. Completely. But Tolkien even describes that, the Thane of the Shire is the War Master. He keeps the spears, the weapons, and the armory.
Mm-hmm.
But when the hobbits return and they have to have that great battle and free the Shire from Sharky and all of the ruffians, the weapons are kind of pathetic.
Yeah, I don't have much.
No hobbit sword has been drawn. No hobbit spear has been lifted, and no hobbit bow has been strung in centuries. So any weapons that are in the hobbit armory are just, they're basically disintegrated at this point.
Yep. The exceptions are they've been hung on a mantle or gifted as a madam, and that's about it.
Yes. Yeah, we don't really have that much purpose for this old sword, but it belonged to my ancestor, whose name may or may not be correct.
Oh,
so long ago it was, who fought.
They would have it
correct. That's
correct.
true. They have that. They have the correct name. It bought to such and such ancestor, and I can tell you all the details about it, but I'm certainly not going to use it.
Oh, no.
No.
It would make me late for dinner.
Battles are just as bad as adventures.
Uncomfortable business. Of a pokey sort.
Yeah. And why settle with your fist something that can just as easily be solved over a mug of ale?
Yeah. No,
Which is a point in their favor, actually.
If you can do it.
If you can. But that gets them into trouble. Because they are wary. They don't like conflict. They don't really want anything to do with conflict. And they ignore the outside world, which causes trouble. Now, it takes a long time for that trouble to really manifest fully.
Mm-hmm.
But not knowing what is happening in the Shire as a whole is what leads to the four hobbits having to free the Shire later on.
Not knowing what's going on outside the Shire, yeah.
Yeah.
No, some could say it's a... I'm going to read a couple passages from Concerning Hobbits. to kind of illustrate this, because, yeah, it is a paradox. Tolkien says, nonetheless, ease and peace had left this people still curiously tough. They were, if it came to it, difficult to daunt or kill, and they were perhaps so unwearyingly fond of good things, not least because they could, when put to it, do without them, and could survive rough handling by grief, foe, or weather in a way that astonished those who did not know them well, or look no further than their bellies and their well-fed faces. Though slow to quarrel, and for sport killing nothing that lived, they were doughty at bay, and at need could still handle arms. They shot well with the bow, for they were keen-eyed and sure at the mark. Not only with bows and arrows, if any hobbit stooped for a stone, it was well to quickly get under cover, as all trespassing beasts knew very well. Right, so wait, that's a people that still has it, right? That still has the spirit of being able to defend themselves, should the need call upon it. And yet, earlier on the same page, they say, the hobbits named it their region a Shire, and a district of well-ordered business, and there in that pleasant corner of the world they plied their well-ordered business of living. And they heeded less and less the world outside where dark things moved, until they came to think that peace and plenty were the rule in Middle-earth, and the right of all sensible folk. They forgot or ignored what little they had ever known of the Guardians, and of the labors of those that made possible the long peace of the Shire. They were, in fact, sheltered, but they had ceased to remember it.
They're sheltered and have no idea that they're sheltered.
Yeah. When you put it that way, sheltered and they have no idea that we're sheltered, like, none of us think about that and think about that as an enviable state. Like, oh no. we pity you after a fashion. Like, you don't really know certain things that you should know. But thinking that peace and plenty were the rule of all Middle-earth, so, yeah, that's just the way it is everywhere. And the right of all sensible folk, like, it should occur to you that not all people will be sensible.
It should, but it isn't, because all hobbits are sensible.
True, so in a certain sense, you're full of yourselves.
All hobbits are all people to us.
Yeah. And well, you're full of yourself.
If you don't know anything about another people, most of the time we assume that they are the same way we are. And then when they're not, it's a shock.
Well, yeah, I mean, and this is the same reason why we can't judge other people's by our own values, because they have different values.
It's not so much out of arrogance as it is out of ignorance.
Yeah, ignorance more so, because you have to be able to call to mind that you actually can't approach things this way. But it's why we talked about the humanist version of history in an earlier podcast. Like, it's the same thing. Like, you do need to care about what's going on outside your borders, and you need to care about the perspectives of the people that are outside your borders if you're going to understand deeper things about life, but also, what you should care about regarding your own defense.
Yeah, well, and care about them no more than you absolutely ought.
Mm-hmm. And so the hobbits are set up to fall victim to what happens to them in the Return of the King. Which is not, an army showed up on our door and conquered us. Although I guess that could have happened. But no, it's slow. I forget the details, but it's, Lotho Sackville Baggins has some dealings with ruffians and this and that, and some
Which
more of
it
them.
would be him.
Yeah. It's a slow infiltration of society and a slow imposition of rules and regulations, and things become tyrannical slowly. It is the frog in the pot of water that is slowly turning up to boiling.
Because people stop caring. Or because people don't care enough. Or they don't care the right way.
Yep. And like you mercifully said, they don't know to care. It is ignorance.
Because they don't know where this is going to lead. Because they don't see where it has led outside in other places. And Bilbo is sort of the only hobbit to break this illusion, to attempt to break the illusion. But it's all him telling fantastic stories of his adventures to children. And the grown-up hobbits don't believe a word of him.
Well, he doesn't think those things will happen to the Shire, I don't think.
No, he doesn't, but he's kind of the only one who has seen anything outside of the Shire.
Mm-hmm.
Except maybe Frodo, if he took Frodo on trips to the Lonely Mountain.
which I doubt. But
Yeah. But yeah, Bilbo is the first hobbit to set foot outside of the Shire in a very, very, very long time. So he's the first one to know that, oh, wait a minute, not all peoples are like us.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's been in Dale. And not the good Dale ruled by the son of Bard. And not the good Dale in the heyday of the Lonely Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the corrupt Dale.
The Master of the Lake was... He met a rather ignominious end, if that's how you say that word.
Ignominious, yes.
Ignominious.
It's rather unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
We spent more time on that than I think I would have liked, but it is probably their greatest failing as hobbits, because it is the one that has the greatest likelihood of causing a slow and steady existential threat. The rest of them are more just personal issues and personal flaws that abound in the Shire.
Yeah, they're great at gossiping.
Really good at gossiping.
Something I have a particular pet peeve about.
And that's the way that country folk are, no matter where you go, no matter what country you're in. Country folk gossip because they don't have a whole lot else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And even though your life is laborious, maybe a little bit difficult, it is not so bad that you can't stop to think about things every now and again. Basically, when you're as content as they are and you don't have things to worry about, you have to make up things to worry about. Or you have to go and find business to poke your nose in when there aren't drastic needs that have to be met. So, gossip is something that is born much out of just time. And gossip is a very, very easy temptation of the leisurely, of people who sit and have conversations. Because while sitting and having a conversation is good, sitting and trying to figure out where Bilbo Baggins got his wealth without asking him, even though he never really will tell anybody, or just making up the stories about it, which none of those are probably anywhere close to as good as the true one.
Mm-hmm.
But just sitting and making up stories about it is at best a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly entertaining, but a waste of time. And at worst, you run the risk of harming the reputation of a hobbit in good standing.
And a person's reputation is almost as important as his life.
Which is why gossip is a violation of the fifth commandment.
And why, yeah, you do serious damage to somebody's reputation, you better confess that.
Yeah, because if you tell a lie about somebody, or if you spread information that gets a man fired from his job and puts him in a position where nobody else will hire him again, you have ruined his life, and you have effectively killed him. On top of that, if you have taken his reputation from him. This is why I don't like the people who very snidely turn up their noses and say of historical people, well, he wasn't as good as you thought he was. They dig into the personal lives of men in the past to try to find their vices and make them into evil and wicked monstrosities of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Because a reputation is all that a man has. It may be all that a man has while he's living, but it can still be taken and rebuilt elsewhere. The dead have nothing other than their reputation.
True.
And whether they're deserving of it or not, no one has the right to remove it. No one has the right to cut it down.
Yeah, I'm tempted to really go down a rabbit hole with how much this is a pet peeve, but...
Why don't we make that another podcast entirely?
We might want to make that another podcast, and some of it has been discussed in other podcasts, but yeah, I mean, just the whole... If a person's reputation is important, I don't know, I've been around enough people in my own life, enough friends that would just make those comments without even thinking about it, because it's second nature to them. And yeah, you just, as a listener, I can't engage in that. I'm not supposed to engage in that, right?
Yeah.
But for you, it might just be, women have this phrase now. It's like, oh, spill the tea. Oh, drink the tea. And it is so effing annoying. Like, you would have just come up with a term for this thing that is heinous. It's not always... I'm not saying it's always...
That's not the only term that has been come up for
sinful.
this, and that is not a totally new thing. There have been
Sure.
spilling the beans, letting the cat out of the bag. There's all sorts of...
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. I'm reminded of growing up, like there was news that broke about this one NBA owner that, you know, had some sort of bad text messages, you know, and this got leaked to the public and there was a big outcry about it, right? I still remember my dad very wisely telling, you know, having his own comments on it, which was basically, that was the guy's text messages.
Whose business was that?
Exactly.
Other than his and whoever he sent it to.
But no, we don't want bad people in power. And who freaking cares?
Then we'll have nobody in power.
Yeah.
Because everybody's bad.
Like, do you
and
think
power
you're some...
tends to corrupt, which makes everybody even worse when they get into power.
Do you think you're some saint? If you were, you wouldn't be thinking this. And if you aren't, well, guess what? Just learn some humility right now. Like, people's reputation matters. That's why as Catholics we believe that when you damage that, you have to make restitution for that.
Yeah.
And that can be a very uncomfortable and how do you even do that type of thing.
Yes, and if it is you damage someone's reputation to the point that they're wrongfully incarcerated, and it comes out that you wrongfully damaged the reputation, guess what? Now you serve that sentence.
Should be that way.
It should be, because that is just.
Yeah. So don't lie about people, and don't tell the truth about people that no one else needs to know. There better be a darn good reason for doing it.
Slander and calumny are both sinful.
Mm-hmm.
Detraction and slander and calumny are all sins.
Mm-hmm.
The difference, it's all sharing stuff that you shouldn't be. The difference, slander is sharing lies. Calumny is sharing the truth.
Well, actually, calumny
Or is it the other way around?
Calumny is lies, detraction is the truth.
Detraction is sharing the truth, yes.
Yes.
That's right. Slander is a legal term.
Yeah. Slander and calumny, I believe, are effectively the same thing.
Yeah.
But
And detraction is telling the truth about somebody when it is not yours or anybody else's business.
Mm-hmm.
Calumny being telling lies about people in order to, or just voicing assumptions, which we do a lot.
So, yeah, the hobbits aren't very good at that. And you
No,
can
they're
pull
not
the
good at
argument.
putting it.
You can pull the argument of that. Okay, well, this is the way of country folk or small folk, at least in, you know, various places or something, right? I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. That doesn't justify it. Find something better to do with your life. Then, if you're people in that type of place, just find something better to do with your life.
Yes.
You know. Yeah. Now, that's some of their vices. We should perhaps also mention that they are inclined to be fat, in the words of Tolkien. And
Yeah. I feel like some of that's genetics, though.
could be. And they are... Tolkien does say they're still nimble. You know? And so they do have their 6 meals a day, although we're seemingly not told about any really adverse health effects that they're having from that. So maybe they can get away with certain things that we can't.
No, I would say that they're healthy. I don't know that hobbits are really morbidly obese unless they're a Sackville Baggins.
Oh, they're not. They just have their own problems.
Yeah, they have different problems.
they have a special case. Them and Ted Sandyman.
Yeah, there's I forgot about Ted Sandyman.
He's an interesting fellow.
Yes. Yeah, so there's the general problems of all of the Shire, and then there's the particular problems of the Sackville Bagginses.
Yeah. So. And hobbits do get drunk. I would imagine, at least at times. Tolkien doesn't go deep into that.
Well,
the only
enough
time
of
we're
them,
really...
At Bilbo's party, several of them had to be wheeled home in wheelbarrows.
Yeah, I think that's the only time we're explicitly told about it. So my sense is that they can generally hold their liquor. But yeah. They are... they have their vices. Hobbit-Living does not necessarily breed virtue. Like you said, we got to remember the Sackville Bagginses exist. And yet I'll let you go.
I should, to the defense of the hobbits, they have 6 meals a day, but it's not really detailed what those 6 meals are. Like, what is eaten at those 6 meals, or how much is eaten during those 6 meals a day. It's basically just 6 times during the day when you break from work to go and have a snack.
Could be.
Like you get up in the morning, you have your breakfast, and then you do some things, and then you have your second breakfast. So we can probably reason that those are fairly similar meals in terms of their constitution. Then you have 11sies. Then you have luncheon, tea time, and dinner. Or luncheon, afternoon tea. And finally
And dinner. And supper.
And supper. So afternoon tea is usually just that. It's tea and maybe a little cake or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how big the meals are,
But,
I don't know.
yeah.
I would defer more to what is the effect it has in the person, ultimately.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Which-
given many... Apart from the fact they're inclined to be fat, I can't really think of much of anything. That...
And they have no issue proliferating. There's children running all over the place in Hobbiton. So
No, they're fine there. And yeah, we're not really told about any grave any societal health problems like our modern culture has.
they're prone to excess, but it's not the sort of excess that takes it. It's more the fun kind of excess, where it's like what Aquinas talks about as the point of hilarity with drink.
Yeah, and Tolkien does say that the hobbits can give it up in a pinch.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, they can do without if they have to. If they don't have to, they don't.
Yeah, that's true.
And like you drink until you fall asleep. Well, better that than make an utter fool out of yourself constantly. And sometimes people just get sleepy when drinking anyway.
Well, sleepiness is one thing. So, drunkenness
Yes.
and losing your faculties is another. But
Yes.
to the larger point, and I'm aware that at this point is when I told your wife that we'd be off of this thing. So
We'll wrap it up.
we will. Yes, there's the vices to pay attention to, but yes, there's also the virtue that we can draw from. There are ways in which we should live more like hobbits. That was the point of doing this podcast. So, despite the vices, this can be taken, I guess, as a reminder to look to the simple in your life and to live for it and to live that in all of the good ways that we've talked about with a proper understanding of what leisure is, with a real love of the craft of your work and the effect that that has on the people around you. With just, everybody manage their own business and try and do things on the most local level possible. With the love of peace. With the love of the earth. With an appreciation for the good and the willingness to share with other people. So the real virtue of hospitality. With a sense of rootedness like you talked about. We could all use more of that. There was that lyric from a Dan and Shay song that you were mentioning last night.
Why would I want to be anywhere else in the world when my whole world is sitting right here?
As you hold your daughter in swing, yes, you need an awareness of the outside world, something the hobbits aren't great of. You need to know what to defend your family from, what your community from.
Mm-hmm.
You can go too far with that. How much of the news do you actually need to care about?
When it consumes your life. Really,
Yeah.
if you got a weekly recap of, hey, what happened this week? What are the major things that I need to be aware of? Which is probably like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
You're fine.
But what forms that? What forms that idea of, okay, what's the right amount? Is not trying to somehow come up with a moderate, okay, what is the right medium amount of news that I think is fine. It's because of the purpose, and the purpose is to protect your daughter who is in your arms on that swing. Right? That dictates how much I need to care about the outside world. Which is less than all and more than none.
Yes.
And you go figure that out, dictated by your daughter in your arms, by your wife standing next to you, by your son going and chasing a baseball or something in the yard in front of you, as all good sons might do. This is what the hobbits get right about their values. Is that image is something that they, despite their flaws, they're not perfect at it, but they're getting at it. They're getting at it in a way that we often aren't today. So go try and imitate them a little bit more this week.
And in perpetuity.
In perpetuity.
Don't just make that a this week thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make that a always and everywhere thing. So, go to work tomorrow. Do your work well. Put your heart into it. For the sake of the work itself, for your fellow man, for your family that you're supporting. Go do something that's worth doing. Go make something that's worth making. And at the end of it, come home to your family and make them your world. Not only then, but especially then, make them your world. That all revolves around, that all is for your family and God.
And may there be a warm light within, and may you be expected. May you have all the virtues of the hobbits and none of their vices.
With that, we'll see you next time.